Palantir has been on a tear recently with their stock price taking off big time, as well as new government contracts and a bunch of other exciting news. But a cursory glance at a lot of different media outlets suggests that nobody knows what the freak Palantir does. So today we're going to take a look at who they are, what they do, as well as a bit of a look at their finances and how we can think about their stock going forward into the future. Good afternoon, family. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Trey, getting in touch with you from Japan. On this channel, we do a lot of investing and finance related stuff, mostly looking at individual stocks. But on our secondary channel linked up here, we talk a lot about small business, entrepreneurship, mindset, even personal finance and stuff like that. Each month, I also do a report card video on this channel, how our followers are growing, how our impressions are growing, and therefore how monetization is growing and stuff like that. So if you're ever interested in YouTube as a business, as a small business, feel free to check out this video on that channel as well. So Palantir, a recently IPO'd stock, has been growing really well. Every time I go on Reddit, people are like, dude, Palantir's up 10% today. Dude, Palantir's up 20% and 22% today. And it's like, dude, really wish I bought this company when they IPO'd. But as with all IPOs, especially in the tech sector, when they come out, a lot of times people don't really have a good grasp on who they are or their financials, but it's also really hard to kind of map out the road plan for the future. And I think Palantir is especially very widely misunderstood, even in the media. But take a look at this 1 month price chart. We see some beast mode gains, putting on nearly 100% in the last month. They hit a high of almost 32 bucks. Right now we're sitting at just under 29 bucks as of filming. Palantir famously went public in September of 2020 for 10 bucks a share after being in business privately for more than 17 years. So it's not actually a new company. And in a lot of cases, it's operated pretty covertly in the shadows in a way that's hard for normal analysts to kind of figure out exactly what's going on as well. They have roughly 2,500 employees and a current market cap of about 50 billion bucks, though that seems to change massively depending on the day of the week that you're looking at it. I'll get into more of this a little bit later on, but one of the really big common criticisms of Palantir is that they have yet to post a profit in any of their years of operation since they started in 2003. From my point of view, this isn't a huge, massive problem. After all, look at Amazon. It took them, I think, 14 years before they posted a profit. And a lot of companies who are in beast mode, growth mode, are just kind of forget profits for now. We're gonna take that money, cycle it back in, and make ourselves even better. We also see that Palantir is plowing hundreds of millions of dollars into marketing, especially in the last year. Palantir is often confused with being a data management company, some kind of secretive government cloud storage, or some kind of military support company. They do have a lot of these characteristics, but they're more simply explained nowadays as a software company who happens to sometimes also take the role of consulting for their clients, particularly companies with lots and lots and lots of data that they want to figure out how to analyze to make more strategic moves, to save on costs and to raise efficiency and things like that. And a lot of their clients are really big companies or really big government organizations who just have realms and realms of data, oftentimes going back years and years and years through various operating systems. So Palantir comes in, gives them a new unifying operating system, and helps them figure out how to use that data to increase efficiencies, to be more strategic, to cut costs, or to grow profits. Their current clients include organizations like the Department of Defense, the SEC, and Airbus, connecting 9,000 of their planes and more than 100 different airlines. So this shows that they're working with Airbus, the first or second biggest commercial airline manufacturer in the world, kind of going back and forth between Boeing. Quick plug, if you want to learn more about Boeing, check out my latest video on them up here. And not only just with Airbus while they're manufacturing, but also tracking all of their planes through all of the airlines that they sell them to as well. And apparently, a lot of the work they're doing with Airbus has saved Airbus so much money, especially during these really tough times as they're struggling through the pandemic. Another concern a lot of people have brought up is that Palantir is very much government-centric and all of their clients are government or something like that. I'll get into more of the specifics on how their revenue breaks out in a minute here. But we also did just see that they signed a $44 million contract with the Food and Drug Administration too. Let's take a look at this article from Business Wire. This kind of gives us an idea of what kind of work Palantir does. Here's the article, but I just wanted to highlight a few different points from it. Number one, this isn't the first contract with the FDA, and it builds on top of existing ones, though this is the largest one yet. This will support the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research and the Oncology Center of Excellence's work by providing these organizations with a sophisticated system for integrating, organizing, and making decisions based on their data. It highlights the fact that Palantir's software breaks down the information silos and allows end users to see new connections and insights from data. And fourthly, this will allow these organizations in the FDA to handle and process human drug review processes and other regulatory activities more smoothly and effectively. So we see that the FDA has a bunch of smaller departments or smaller sections inside of it, and they probably already have their own ways of handling information, their own rules for privacy, their own hierarchies for security, and all of these different complex systems that are probably built by different developers and stuff too. So Palantir comes in and says, okay, on top of what we've already done for you, we're going to be providing more value for helping you figure out and optimize your drug review process. And so an example of that could be something like, hey, we see that this type of drug testing seems to be working with these type of people, but maybe not these type of people. And also having a system that's overarching over all of these different systems helps leadership to make more punchy and decisive decisions moving forward. And Palantir has already proved time and time again that implementing their processes, though not cheap, can often end up saving their clients like hundreds of millions of dollars. Palantir's also shared a couple of slides here on their website. Check out some of these highlights. We make products for human-driven analysis of real-world data. The people aren't required to master querying languages, statistical modeling, or the command line, yet they can still make really accurate and helpful decisions. Simply put, you don't have to be a nerd to figure out how to use all the systems. You don't have to be like an engineer. You can just be like some decision maker who doesn't know all of that stuff and be like, wow, all of our data shows us this cool stuff that we can use to make this decision going forward. We meet problems where they live. We send our engineers into the field to work directly with our customers, deploying our products, integrating their data, optimizing their workflows, and producing operational results in weeks. So one of the really interesting things Palantir does is they alternate their engineers from being in the HQ, working on the systems, and going out to work with the clients. They alternate them around. And when an engineer comes into your company from Palantir, or engineers or a team, then they can see how the workers or how the troops or whoever it is are struggling, and they can be there firsthand with them. And they can say, oh, I can see that this soldier in this situation, even though other people in the troop know about some other information that could help them, they don't have that information. How can we get that to them to make better decisions, to maybe save a life or something like that? So by sending their engineers into the field, those engineers can connect the dots between the technical engineering stuff and actual problems and actual data that already exists. They also show on their Philanthropy engineering page a bunch of examples of ways they use these engineering skills for the good of humanity. With Palantir, investigators are uncovering human trafficking rings, finding exploited children, and unraveling complex financial crimes. They go on to talk about public health officials are tracking and containing the spread of deadly diseases. Information security specialists are defending against the theft of intellectual property, while oversight authorities are auditing user activity to protect sensitive data from misuse or abuse. When you look around on the internet, it's easy to assume that Palantir is very government project-centric heavy, but actually, as we'll see in some of the numbers here in a minute, that isn't the case, and it's becoming even less the case. Before we jump into some of the financials, I wanted to take a look at a couple of the co-founders. First, starting out with Peter Thiel, who is revered by many as a genius and also like vilified by a lot of people, especially in Silicon Valley. He's a super interesting character. Peter got his start with PayPal alongside Elon Musk back in the day and has started several investment funds and companies since. He was the first public investor in Facebook, which gave him a healthy 20x return on his $500,000 investment in 2004. He prides himself on not only being gay, but also on his philanthropic efforts. Before he came out of the closet, a media company called Gawker, known for publishing generally gossipy and generally unhelpful articles about famous people, outed him. They happened to also release a sex tape of Hulk Hogan later on too. So Thiel chipped in $10 million for various lawsuits, including Hogan's, against Gawker, eventually putting them out of business after Hogan was awarded $140 million for the suit. This ended Gawker, and Thiel claimed this as one of his greatest philanthropic victories. Interestingly, he's also been an avid supporter of Trump and is generally pretty open about his right-leaning political stance. And I think that also led him and the other leaders of the company to move Palantir from Silicon Valley out to Denver a few years ago. He's been very vocal about his feelings and kind of discomfort with the way Silicon Valley operates. One of the interesting situations that Palantir is forced into, especially because they work with the government in so many different cases, is that they need to individually let go of their own values in some situations. And this also puts the company in a spot where it can be really divisive. And some people might be like, I'm not okay investing with a company who's fighting for border control or things like that, which actually Palantir has done because US Customs and Immigration has hired them to help them optimize their systems in keeping the Mexico-US border more secure. And so a lot of people look at that and be like, I'm not really okay with that political stance, so I'm not okay with Palantir. You may be familiar with grumpy old man George Soros, who seems to short every stock that kind of seems to have a glimpse of a bright future. George Soros also was looking at Palantir. He happened to invest in it many, many years ago and has since made hundreds of millions of dollars off of it. But recently, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, put out an article saying, I don't like their political stance. I don't like the way they're doing things, especially Peter Thiel. So my funds are selling out of Palantir as soon as we can. He also said that he dislikes the fact that Palantir knows everything about you and can monitor you and stuff like that. But he also mentioned that when he did invest, it was unclear in the world how much data and monitoring and things like that would become such a big ethical issue. And so he says that's the reason, that's the primary reason why he's backed out of Palantir. Interestingly, one of the other co-founders and now CEO of Palantir, this sharp-looking chap named Alex Karp, is a self-declared socialist and avid Democrat who wants nothing to do with Trump. That being said, he fights to honor his contract with US Customs and Immigration and is generally in support of more government regulation over tech. So since Karp is the CEO of the company, generally when you're watching publications or videos online that they put out, you'll see his face a lot. We can get into a lot about who he is, what his vision is, and stuff like that, but before this video gets too long, I want to take a look at some of the financials. Earlier, I mentioned Palantir's platforms. The two SaaS platforms, SaaS stands for Software as a Service. The Foundry software platform is the first one, and that's used for commercial clients, while the Gotham software platform is used in various sectors of government they work with, both inside and outside the US. You may have heard of Apollo, and that's what powers those SaaS platforms and keeps all the data accessible everywhere it's needed. Palantir has mentioned that their biggest opposition, their biggest competition, is their own clients, is their potential clients themselves. And so when a really big company is kind of like, hey guys, we have all this data, how can we figure out how to use it better? They might just decide to, using their own internal resources and their own internal teams, to build programs or to build search query tools to help figure out how to make decisions going forward. So Palantir's challenge is to come in and say, hey, the way we're gonna do it, we're experienced in this. It might not only just save you money, but it might make things faster, it might make things smoother, and it might even be more secure. So choose us before you use your own people to do a similar task. And as a result, we're seeing that growth from Palantir's existing clients seems to be one of the big sources of their growth, though we are starting to see more and more clients coming on board too. Speaking of revenues, let's take a look at some of the financials. But as usual, please keep this in mind whenever you're looking at IPO companies or companies who have recently IPO'd. What often happens is that they say to their executives, like CEO, CFO, and these kind of people, hey, when we go public sometime in the future, we're gonna give you a bunch of free stock as payment. So it's not cash, it's just stock that now all of a sudden has value, and now it's sent over to Karp's account or whoever it is. So all these executives are gonna start getting huge amounts of money, which is basically just stock going into their accounts. So if you're looking at the wrong graphs that don't break that down for you, you might see like, hey, the company's growing, and then all of a sudden when they go IPO, it's just like super negative. And that's not like, the whole business fell apart or they started sucking at managing things. That's basically just a norm when companies go stock, is all of a sudden they have this huge expense of paying these stocks out to their executives. Check it out here. We have the third quarter 2020 financial highlights that they've provided for us. They show year-over-year revenue growth is up 52%. They didn't mention this in this slide, but the government segment has shown 68% revenue growth, and the commercial segment has shown 35% growth. Next, we have adjusted operating margins, which are now up to 25% from negative 48% in the same quarter last year. So this shows us big time growth, which is exciting to see. Continuing on with more exciting figures they've provided, we see the ARP, average revenue per customer, going up 38%. And this is from $4.2 million for the 9 months ended September 30th. So the whole year of 2019 up to September 30th, their average client was paying them $4.2 million, but that's gone up now to $5.8 million. Another concern people have with Palantir is that they have a very small number of clients. I think it's around 125, though I think that's changing. Let me know down in the comments section if that's right. But they provided a figure showing the average revenue of the top 20 customers has also gone up 36% for the 9 months ended September 30th of 2019, from 17.4 million up to 23.6 million. That's also a really good sign to see. And they also showed how that revenue concentration is decreasing from being too centered on a small number of big players to spread out more evenly. This lowers risk and dependency. They said in 2019, the top 20 customers made up 68% of their total revenue, whereas this year, it's only 61%. So that's a good sign to see. Next, I wanted to take a look at some of the numbers concerning their government/commercial revenue balance. A lot of people are concerned like, do they just work with the government too much? That's too risky. And also the commercial sector is much more profitable, can have much higher margins. So let's take a look at some of these numbers they've provided. In 2020, our commercial business grew 35% year over year. And we signed the largest commercial deal in our history at $300 million in the aerospace industry. So they're up from 94 million up to 127 million. Then on the flip side, in the third quarter of 2020, our government business grew 68% year over year, including a 2-year $91 million contract with the U.S. Army Research Laboratory and a $36 million IDIQ award with the National Center for Advanced Translational Sciences. So that kicked them from 97 million all the way up to 163 million. So currently, third quarter, government, 163 million, commercial, 127 million. So it's not quite half-half, but I wouldn't be like this isn't like a super red flag, like, oh my gosh, they're totally dependent on the government who could dump them at any time or anything like that. They also showed us that their gross margin, excluding stock-based compensation, which I mentioned a minute ago, has gone up from 70 to 81%. Now again, if you look at the numbers, if you look at a lot of the charts, it's gonna be like gross margins going up because of that stock-based compensation. They're excluding that in this calculation, showing that they've gone from 70% up to 81%. They also included that they have $1.8 billion in cash and cash equivalents as of September 30th, 2020. And continuing on that same vein, they're expecting year-over-year revenue growth to be greater than 30% in 2021. Another cool fact I found out about them is that they have more than 800 patents pending, 475 US patents, and over 500 international patents as well. Patents can be one of those neat little ways that give companies little bits of moat, and when you pile up a bunch of them, especially in something that's as like invisible and underground and behind the scenes as what Palantir does, that can give them much more moat, making it difficult for other companies to provide the exact same service. And obviously, once you're in love with Palantir and they're helping your company save a bunch of money or make a bunch of money or make really huge decisions that are saving lives, switching away from Palantir to a potential competitor is also a huge switching cost, providing another moat for Palantir's financial stability going forward. Palantir calculates their total addressable market, or TAM, at 119 billion, with 56 billion in the commercial industry, 26 billion as US government, and 37 billion as international government. Palantir is very clear in the fact that they stand firm for independence and democracy and capitalism, and they're not down with working for China or Russia or some of these other countries. So when they're talking about working with international governments, those are always US allies, which I think addresses another point of concern that a lot of people have brought up with this company. So that's Palantir in a nutshell. What do I think about Palantir? What do you think about Palantir? It's very annoying and frustrating looking at it right now. And actually, by the time I release this video, the price will have changed significantly again. It seems like it's going up or down 10 or 20% a day. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. Because there's so much mystique around the company and because they seem so powerful and effective at what they do, I think there's going to be a huge portion of like young investors especially, or people who just love to see big headlines, who are just going to be continually throwing money at Palantir. All that to say, I think Palantir, as they projected, I think they're going to see year-over-year revenue growth going into the future. That being said, is it worth like 30 or 40 bucks per stock right now? I don't really think so. But again, as I say in all my videos, my style is like if I see a company and I believe in it and I like the way they work and I like the vision, I'll dollar cost in over the months and years. And I don't think it's worth its current price right now, but I don't know if it'll ever go back down to 15, 20, 22 bucks. You know? And so for me, I'm still a little bit on the fence. I don't think it's the fish that got away yet, like how Amazon is for me, where it's like jillions of dollars to buy a couple of stocks. I might grab a little bit of Palantir. I'm really intrigued by the leadership, by the way they're willing to stand on their values, and by seeing a lot of the different cool projects that they're doing. So I like it as a long-term hold, not necessarily at the current price, but if I'm dollar cost averaging in and the value catches up to the current price, then maybe in a few weeks or a few months, it might be more worth it. But I think, again, if you're holding and buying just little by little over the months and years, those will eventually catch up to each other. Do you own Palantir? How long have you been in it? Are you in it just because you know it's going to be a quick up and down? Are you in it to hold on to it for the long term? Like, what are your thoughts on this stock? I'm really, really interested to hear people who've dug into Palantir and its way of operating and your kind of thoughts and your investing philosophy and strategy around this company. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Palantir. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I've also been getting a lot of requests for Alibaba lately. For those who've been following the channel a long time, I'm not really in love with working with Chinese stocks. I have owned Alibaba a little bit in the past here, like just for a little bit, and some other Chinese stocks, but you know, there's like so much regulation and all this different stuff. All that to say, I'll probably do a review on Alibaba coming up. So if you're interested in seeing that, please hit the subscribe button down below. Additionally, if you're interested in getting 4 stocks for up to $3,700, you can get those by signing up to Webull down below in our link in the description and depositing $100. So thank you guys very much for your time. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Have a great weekend. I love you and talk to you soon.